Thank you so much, everybody. So I'm just going to spend kind of like the first 25 minutes or so. Can I get this light turned down a fraction or not at all? This one's like right in my eyes. Just talking a little bit about some of the, some of the challenges that we see in terms of where technology is going and how that is disrupting our country and our economy, and where we see some of these future sectors going in terms of high levels of productivity. So can I just get a gauge on who's here from government? Cool, fabulous. From industry or business? Fabulous. From social enterprise? Yeah, awesome. We've got excellent voice in the room. Okay, that's great. Just helps me as I go through. If there's any questions as I go through, you can either kind of put them into the little question thing, or actually, given it's a small and quite intimate room, just plonk your hand up or just kind of wave it around so I can actually see it. I'm really happy to take questions as we go through. So let's kick into this, and then we'll follow it up by a case study by LAC. So it is my pleasure to formally welcome you to the Productive Sectors sector session of the Digital Nations 2030 conference, which is a fantastic initiative. We are living in a time of unbelievable change, and I'm going to go through some of that today, and hopefully you'll be aware of some of this, but hopefully I can open your eyes on some new ways to look at this. It is this kind of progressive forward-looking change that many of our innovators and entrepreneurs are leading, but we don't have enough businesses doing this for our future economy. So I'm from Callaghan Innovation. I'm the CEO. I've got 20 years of experience in tech and innovation through corporate in terms of Spark and Chorus. I was managing director for Xero for New Zealand and 180 countries, emerging countries around the world. I've been on the boards of a couple of startups like Red Shield, which took out 2 high-tech awards last year for cybersecurity, software as a service. And I also chair a social enterprise, and I'm on the board of Contact Energy. So I've got a really good view of what innovation and technology looks like in New Zealand, right from startup, including social enterprise, through to corporate. So today I'm going to share with you my views on it. So, clicker is here. Green. That one. There we go. Righty-ho. So as you all know, we're in the 4th industrial internet revolution, which is based on cyber-physical production systems, and it's basically where the internet meets software and hardware. And what this does is transforms entire systems of our industry and, of course, of our economy. So we've moved from the digital age, which was electronics and IT production automation, and we are now heading into a quite different space. So manufacturing is going to be one of the biggest users of this artificial intelligence, hardware meets software meets internet, over the next decade, and we're going to talk a little about some of the opportunities that are coming out of that. So let's start on, what does this actually look like? Because it's great to say the industrial internet revolution of where hardware, software, internet meet, but this is actually, I found, one of the best explanations of it. So on the left-hand side, you've got things, you've got matter. So that's us as people, that's our machines, that's our buildings, that's our environment, it might be our cows or our sheep, anything like that. And what happens is when you put sensors and hardware in real time into that matter, then you collect a whole range of data about your system. And that is the transformation that we are going through. It's actually quite simple when you take it to a 50,000 foot level like this, but its impact on our industries are absolutely profound. So for example, agriculture is shifting away and becoming more around precision agriculture. We're going to talk a lot more about ag today. Healthcare is about precision medicine, quantified self, and digital health. We'll actually talk a little bit about what that can look like today. Food and beverage is no longer about food and beverage. It is increasingly shifting towards precision nutrition. So that is being able to identify the exact makeup of what your, for example, your immune system or your health system looks like, and then targeted interventions, whether that's food or drugs or whatever it is, to address those specific problems. So it's no longer generic, here's what we think it is. It's targeted understanding and targeted intervention. Manufacturing is an industry 4, advanced manufacturing, they're the terms that you'll hear the most there. Utilities and energy are shifting to smart grid, smart buildings, home energy management, things like that. And consumer goods completely changing to recommendation-based engines. So you've got the likes of Amazon coming in, who are going to dominate the in-home purchases over the next decade, quantified life, and on it goes. So I love this picture in regards to it's really simple, and on the right it shows the transformative effect on industry. So we can't be talking about the industry traditional definitions anymore. We've got to start moving our language to new space. But it's not just the technology that's having the impact. So we've basically got three things that are happening. We've got disruption, and technology is driving a lot of that, but we'll talk about other things that are happening there. Demonetization. We are seeing the complete destruction of major industry profit pools over and over and over again. So that's a big dynamic that we've got going on. And dematerialization. So the ability to not be so focused on the physical, but the cyber physical in terms of, we just talked about on the previous slide. So they're the big three Ds around it, if you like. Technology is having an impact. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the technologies coming through and how that is impact. But what it is driving is a much bigger impact than just technology itself. It's impacting our people. We're going to talk about that. It's impacting us as leaders and what is demanded from us in regards to leading through the fourth industrial internet revolution. And it's impacting our business model. So the rest of the presentation is going to quickly touch on that and then look at a couple of sectors. So these are the types of technologies that are coming through. Well, we've had mobile for a long time, but the Internet of Things platforms is really starting to take off. Location detection technologies, advanced human-machine interfaces, so in cities around America, real-time facial recognition that are then fed into police cars in real time. So basically police cars are roaming around the street, actually being able to understand if somebody has been reported in terms of a criminal. Literally within 5 minutes, facial recognition software is searching the streets as those police cars drive around looking for that criminal. I mean, that's phenomenal in terms of what is possible in that space. Authentication and fraud detection, so blockchain and a whole other lot of things playing a big role there. 3D printing. Anyone heard of 4D printing? Yep. So that's the ability to add another dimension, time, electricity, some other catalyst in the change, which will completely change the form of your product when you do that. So you could have a flat pack toaster, might be this small, you courier it out to a customer, you plug it into the wall, and it literally turns into a toaster. So some crazy stuff like that coming. Smart sensors, of course, that's going to be everywhere. Big data, we talk a lot about that in AI, AR, VR, and of course cloud computing's been around for a while, but we are not all taking advantage of that. So these are the sorts of technologies that are coming through, and so I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at, when you look at the top industry technologists around the world, or actually, sorry, in America, but they're pretty big. So this is from the 800 technology experts and executives in regards to when do they think some of these technology tipping points are going to occur. So most of them are thinking that by 2025, so that's 7 years, 10% of people will be wearing clothes connected to the internet. There'll be the first robotic pharmacist handing out drugs in the US. The first 3D printed car will be in our laps. Driverless cars will be 10% of cars. I actually think that will go faster. The first transplant of a 3D printed liver. And the other one that I really love is the first AI machine on a corporate board of directors. So as we're sitting around the table, we will have our AI robot or whatever physical manifestation that thing takes, and actually be able to get intelligence that we've never been able to access before as directors. So how does that compare to with where we are as a market? Well, the message is, bloody wake up, people, because we are not seeing that coming. And this is a survey done out of New Zealand. There's an equivalent survey in Australia. And Australia is a little bit ahead of us in terms of their businesses. But when you ask businesses what are the biggest impacts on their business in terms of technology over the next decade, 44% say better broadband connectivity. Well, we've just come out of the decade where you've had better broadband connectivity. So our businesses are quite behind in regards to how much they understand about this new technology coming through and applying it into their organisation. So for me, this is a major, major issue for our economy and for our country. If our businesses don't see this revolution coming, their ability to not just survive but thrive for our economy through the next decade is severely compromised. The other one that technology is impacting is people. And so heading into the people quadrant. So what are some of the sorts of changes we see there? So as Andrew McAfee said about technological unemployment, technology has injected into the economy at a staggering rate, thus decreasing the need for human workers. So you can see that in the bottom line red, which is the 2000s. We are facing the slowest unemployment growth record in decades. And of course we had the GFC that came through 2008, but our economy has not recovered from that because technology has been surpassing the need for humans to do roles. So that is, I believe, that is only going to continue. So we can talk about that in a little bit, actually over the slide. So for me, there are 4 major impacts that technology is causing and also helping disrupt our people. So the first is urbanisation. People are flocking to cities in regards to get better education and better job opportunities. That's just not happening in New Zealand, that is happening all around the world. Auckland is the 180th fastest growing city in the world. We do not have a single unique issue to us. In fact, we're not even growing anywhere near as fast as the rest of the world in terms of city. So that is changing the way that people are thinking about their futures and opportunities that come up. It is said that up to half of jobs in New Zealand will go in their current format over the next decade or so and will be replaced by different types of jobs. And we'll kind of come on to what some of those could look like. So if you are not helping your organisation and your people understand, is their job going to be here in the next 5 to 10 years? Is technology going to surpass that? And you don't have a strategy for that, then we are stranding our people. And personally, I don't feel very comfortable with that. So at Callaghan Innovation, as part of our 3 to 5 strategy, 3 to 5 year strategy work, we are kicking off a future of work piece where we understand what aspects of our staff's jobs are going to be automated. Will they then be able to transition into those new roles that are created? And if they can't, then where do the job opportunities look for them and how do we help? The next one is global social platforms, over 2 billion people. I think it might even be more on Facebook now. Who's been kind of keeping across the Me Too stuff? Yep. I mean, that for me, that's phenomenal. We've never seen movements, whether it's Me Too, there's plenty of them coming through. You would never see that significant shift in societal values as fast as you could with not having 2 billion plus people connected on Facebook. So the social platforms are playing a fundamental role to transform our values, our society, what's acceptable and what's not. And of course, our skills will change. So I'm going to cover a little bit of what this looks like. So, leadership skills. So how we lead our companies, our organisations, our industry in the last decade will not be how we lead it in the coming decade with all of this change coming through. And this is a really, really nice kind of picture of the types of leadership skills that will be needed through the coming decade. And some of them have been around for a while, like emotional intelligence has been around there. But there's some new ones in terms of contextual intelligence. When you have AI and big data doing the work for you, your role is to add value in regards to the context of what's going on, not to be super smart to be able to analyse information and create insights. It's about contextual intelligence. Things like physical intelligence, so the increasing importance of wellness and how we keep ourselves and our workplaces well and healthy. Entrepreneurial intelligence. What will be demanded of us and leaders in the next decade is an incredible level of agility, and that's an entrepreneurial skill. So you will see more skills like that being demanded from our leaders. Transdisciplinary intelligence, so the ability to navigate a number of different disciplines will become more important. Ecosystem intelligence, we're actually going to cover this in a couple of slides. The importance of you understanding the ecosystem that you are operating in. We could survive over the last kind of 5 decades operating more on our own. We can't survive moving forwards doing that. And ethical intelligence, so that's the likes of the Me Too. What was acceptable to say in public 5 years ago is not acceptable to say, and some of our leaders have been really burnt by that fast-paced transition and shift over the last couple of years, and that's a really horrible place to be. So there's a lot of new things demanded of leaders. And then the last one for me, the other one in terms of roles, is what types of roles will we have moving forwards? And these are the roles that your organisation should be having underway now, if not certainly be thinking about. So digital transformation strategy, that's been around for a while. A director, open innovation, team lead, digital workplace, general manager of IT innovation, digital factory, business development, and yeah, on it goes. So there's some new types of roles there. I think New Zealand is getting better at digital transformation, although we've had a number of major failures in that space, and you're seeing more chief innovation officers coming through. The next one in terms of the disruption, and the final one in terms of the quadrant, is platforms. And I alluded to, if you're not part of a platform moving forward, and it doesn't matter whether you're a business or you're in government, your ability to survive and thrive the next decade is again compromised. So this is all about the sharing economy that we are heading into. I had a friend of mine who has a place up north in a camping ground, and she had been trying to advertise it herself and via some real estate mechanisms in regards to attracting people to stay there. She put it on Airbnb and literally transformed her campsite overnight. So you've got to be part of those platforms that have established reach and scale. Industries are colliding. We're going to cover that a little bit as well. Technologies are colliding, so we need to learn to compete and collaborate with the same organisations, whereas traditionally we've been more competitors. And partnerships matter statistically, and it's beyond just the product or technology. So entrepreneurs and organisations who can think in a sharing economy, collaborative platform way, again, will be more successful through the next decade. So let's have a look at a couple of sectors in regards to, well, where could they be going over the next decade with all of this change coming through? So let's start with agriculture, because that is a huge sector for our country, and there are varying degrees of how much we are under threat globally in regards to agriculture, and we've got Wayne up next talking from LAC as well. So AgFunder is a funder out of the US, and they focus specifically on investing in new agri-food tech startups, and it's about connecting those startups with accredited investments. They release a report every half, so their first half 2017 report showed that ag tech food startups innovating from farm to fork attracted $4.4 billion of investment. So that's just in the first half, so that's around 8-9 billion a year. And these ag tech startups that they are working with are largely solving challenges such as food waste, so we waste 40% of our food, CO2 emissions, chemical residues, food safety traceability, distribution inefficiencies, and I know Foodstuff have a number of challenges there, farmer welfare, health and sugar consumption, and unsustainable meat production. And so obviously we are seeing the rise of alternative proteins in regards to meat, but also milks. And that part of the market is increasing hugely globally with significant investment going behind those companies. It's also supported by changing consumer preferences. So for those of you who were at the panel yesterday afternoon, Francis was talking about how 25% of the world's population is basically kids, and it is these kids that are informing consumer preferences moving forward. So while me, and particularly my mum, loves milk, adores milk, the new generation coming through don't. And so that's what is impacting us, changing consumer preferences, a need to feed 9 billion people by 2050, and unsustainable practices. What is good to see is that corporates are increasing their participation in the ag tech sector. So 15% of their $4.4 billion funding came from corporates. And that's obviously what we see in New Zealand as well, with the likes of Fonterra trying to get into this space more and working with startups. It's a critical part of it. Unfortunately, 48% of funding goes into US deal activity, but at least we feature on the map. So there's a few deals that are coming down here, so that's good. I couldn't get a better picture of this. I went up to Israel last year, and this is just a good example of how Israel are embracing these changes. So they've got 400 agri-tech startups, and 50% of them were founded in the last few years. So this is a hot sector globally. And my concern is that the sector in New Zealand is not embracing fast enough the consequences of these shifts. And it's hard because it's a big sector, it's done things a certain way for decades and decades now, and that ability to pivot and shift is a lot harder when you're big as opposed to when you're a startup. So that's that one. And there's major incubators, accelerators, and integrated investment funds happening in this space. When we were up in Tohono last year, we spent some time working out what would an exponential agriculture sector look like in New Zealand. And we started to think about, well, if we were to look for creating an ecosystem and creating an investment fund in exponential agri-tech, who would we have? And these are the types of organisations that we believe we need to bring into the sector in New Zealand. So we need to diversify our ag sector ecosystem here, not just bringing in more global players, bringing in a lot more big data players, bringing a lot more science in universities, whether that's New Zealand based or some incredible work that's happening globally in the science sector. So they were just our thoughts, and that's just an illustration of, for example, where we would see the sector going. And then the last one on ag tech is just remembering that our food production sits in the context of a major change happening in health. And that is, as you get sensors that you can, Orion Health are trialling a sensor that just sits inside your chest, constantly emitting data about the health of your system, charges wirelessly overnight, things like that. And there's a number of players looking at that. As we get that information, either from sensors or as we, go to the toilet in the morning and it analyses what the heck's happened in our body overnight, along with our gene testing, then we will get far more personalised nutrition. And that will be delivered to our door or delivered in new ways that are incredibly convenient for us. And so I guess my view of my challenge to the agri-tech sector in New Zealand is we must think of it in this context. Yes, it's about feeding people, but increasingly it is about the health and well-being of the people that we are feeding. So becoming part of this ecosystem, I think, is really important. So that's that one. The next one is advanced manufacturing, absolutely critical. It's a huge part of our economy and a big part of our export sectors. And in a recent McKinsey survey, more than 200 business leaders throughout the 10 countries that make up the Association of Southeast Asian Nations basically believe that Industry 4 would bring new models and opportunities to their industry. It is expected to deliver between 1.2 trillion and 3.7 trillion in efficiency gains in how the sector is operating. And that is absolutely phenomenal, and we participate in this. So why is that? That's because digital manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, is bringing things like 3D printing, robotics, sensors, and that big data integration, which means the way that you manufacture and the information you get around your manufacturing is transformed. For New Zealand, it also means that we are able to manufacture in small volumes and compete with the big players globally in a way that we haven't, because scale isn't as important when you've got that technology at your fingertips. So for me, manufacturing will undertake major changes in terms of the way that we do it. It will unlock incredible efficiencies, and it will bring new opportunities to us to compete in industries that we haven't competed in for a long time, like 3D printing cars, because we haven't had the scale to do it. And as I said, it's a big part of our export sector, so critical to us. The last one I just wanted to cover is digital and tech sector in terms of where that's going. The TIN 200 report shows that is growing favourably and nicely, and our exports are the highest ever. I think it's hit 10 billion of revenue, I think, in regards to that sector. I can't quite remember if that's the right number. But my point here is that digital and tech underpins every other sector that is out there. So yes, we can treat it as its own sector, but actually every other sector needs to be ensuring it is embracing digital and tech and not leaving it to others. And that can take the form of SaaS services, big data, all sorts of things. So this one, for example, is just an example of an international ecosystem in digital health. And we've got a number of businesses in New Zealand, or startups in New Zealand, who are playing in this space in a global way. And then the next one is insurance technology. So again, you've got major technology disruption going through the insurance sector over the next decade, so a huge opportunity. So as I said, software as a service is big here. Product differentiation via artificial intelligence, big data and software means that your consumer experience will be completely different. Innovation methods, design thinking, agile, co-creation are driving speed to market. You can get to market faster than we've ever been able to before. And we've got emerging technologies like AR, VR, blockchain, which are also fundamentally changing these industries as well. Just on a kind of final note, I spoke about boards yesterday. Absolutely critical. And this is New Zealand data. 35% of our boards say they have the right skills and experience to lead us through this digital future over the next decade. I mean, that's phenomenal, and we should be ashamed. Sorry. 28% don't have the right digital capability in their organisation, and over a third aren't sure if they've got the right digital capability. 47% of boards receive good quality information in this space. 23% of boards actively participate in security, so it is no wonder that 93% of security breaches could have been avoided. So the experience that we have in our boards is significant, and I've just got some ideas on how you can address that for those of you who do sit on boards or who have influences into boards. And that is just upskill yourself. Critical to upskill, and you must upskill your board members. Boards love risk. Bring a risk framework. What is the risk to your organisation if you don't adopt this technology over the next decade? And that's a great way to start thinking about this. Obviously building your own organisational capability, and then setting things up like digital subcommittees. We have a health and safety, we have an audit and risk. Let's get digital as well. So that's pretty much it for me. I just wanted to kind of finish on the note which says that, previous one, how do I do that? As a country, we need to be more globally ambitious. Our exports have plateaued. And we need startups that think global from day one. The boundaries of our world have shrunk. The industrial internet revolution will make that happen further. And unless we get more companies who are ambitious to take our product and services to the world, then we will not either survive or thrive the next decade. So we've got the likes of Orion, Fisher & Paykel, Xero, Pushpay, a number who are leading the way for our entrepreneurs, who are setting the pace, and hopefully more will follow. So that's it from me. I'm going to open it up to questions, which is in this thing here. And the final one from me is, how do you look at this slide? Do you see this as discrete products and services that live in bubbles that don't relate to each other? Or do you see this as a integrated platform of how we will live, work and play in the future? Because what technology is driving is the latter. So, questions. What do I do? Push all questions. That's it from me. I've got no questions. I just bored the pants off you for 26 minutes. Hope you enjoyed that. Let's do the old-fashioned way of questions. Yes? Yeah. What ones are missing? I love this feedback, virtual improvement on the go. One more. Yeah. 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 Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hidden in people. So, up to 50% of our jobs in their current form will go. I mean, it's huge, and we have active conversations in Callaghan Innovation. If you're kind of 60 plus, you might be okay. If you're in your mid-50s, you actually need to upskill for the remainder of your working career. You're not going to make it through in a way that you may be accustomed to making it through. So, yeah, it's a really good point. There was a question down here. Absolutely, I do, and clearly I'm going to say that. And countries around the world see that, and of course, part of it is becoming aware of the technology, and that's coming through. And the second challenge that we face as a country is that our R&D spend is increasing low. We're not playing with that technology in our organisation, so government intervention there can really help with that. And then the third one is that we like to invent everything ourselves. We like to do it in silos. So we have some phenomenal ideas coming out of universities and CRIs, and so how we can do a much stronger job in the ecosystem of connecting those ideas to not just startups but through to corporates and venturing. Yeah, important. And then I think there's two other things that I think are important to drive through this change. New Zealand must accept multinationals being here. It's a global world. Multinationals take us close in terms of market intelligence into markets, and they bring disciplines and processes we simply don't have. And then the last one is our fear of failure. We've got to get out there, try stuff. If it doesn't work, pivot, move on, learn and move on. But, failure is a bit of a, okay, your life's over, your career's over. In New Zealand, that's got to change. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's a good place to start. We can, we can certainly attract more multinationals to do that. And then over time, we can build out, okay, so we're not just a pilot test. We've got great skills, capabilities, in these areas and build that out over time. Of the old what? Yeah, I'm not aware as a sector. Does anyone else know? I'm not aware of anything, but I am aware that corporates are increasingly moving to those indexes themselves and starting to measure those things for the first time and perhaps getting a little bit of a shock. Yep, 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 yep. That's right. Okay, so one more question, then I'm going to leave it there. Yep. Totally. I mean, you have to have either someone in your board or your executive team driving this change. This change won't happen middle management under, and middle management are a major block to this change as well, by the way. So unless you've got that pressure coming from somebody, a champion, your CEO, exec, or someone on your board, it won't happen. And then I think what we're learning, particularly in large organisations, is setting up innovation teams outside of the main core of the organisation also isn't as efficient. You actually need to teach your organisation to be innovative, and things like lean process is iterative is a good place to start, and then bring more and more innovation processes over the top and ideas over the top of that. But I think unless that's why those boards are so crucial, yeah, in New Zealand.